Choral reading can serve as a model for fluent reading and allow students to have added support from their classmates and teachers. This is particularly helpful to English language learners because they oftentimes may become discouraged or nervous when having to read aloud in front of an entire class. So, choral reading can be done individually, in small groups, or with large classes, and it can also be differentiated to different subjects and grade levels. When modeling choral reading, I'm going to be using a short excerpt from an adult book because I'm going to be using an adult model. However, when working with students in your class, you'll want to choose a text or a poem that is either at the independent or instructional level of the majority of the students in your class. So if I was working with an ELL student, I might want to use visuals or hands-on activities to introduce the topic. For example, if I was using the poem The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost for the lesson, I might have students create their own poem using words they find and cut themselves from magazines that are supplied to them. To jumpstart that lesson, I would make sure that choral reading material supports a specified lesson that students are already exposed to, whether regarding content or vocabulary skills. This will allow students to extend their knowledge of either the content or vocabulary through the practice of choral reading. To start the lesson, I would then review the vocabulary found in the text that students may be unsure of. For example, if I was using that poem, I would maybe review diverged, undergrowth, or trodden, or any other vocabulary words that you think your students might not already be sure of. Then you'll want to provide your students with a copy of the text and something to follow along with while you're reading. That could be a highlighter, a pencil, or even as simple as a finger, just so that they're following along with you while you're reading. So then you want to read the story or the poem aloud to model the fluent reading for students. You want to be sure to emphasize key words or phrases. Next time when you reread it, you want to have all the students join in unison, and this can be done several times until the level of fluency you want is achieved. And this would be essentially the end of choral reading, and then you can move on to another lesson, or you can have the students read independently to you. So now I'm going to be demonstrating for you choral reading, and keep in mind this is for an adult English who already knows English, but if you were doing with an English language learner, you would kind of make those modifications that I said before and make sure that that text is at the instructional or independent level for that student. Now I'm going to demonstrate choral reading by reading the first paragraph of the book Slaughterhouse-Five. So I'm going to read the first paragraph and you're going to follow along.
Okay.
And then we're going to read it together. All this happened more or less, the war parts anyway, are pretty much true. One guy I knew really was shot in Dresden for taking a teapot that wasn't his. Another guy I knew really did threaten to have his personal enemies killed by hired gunmen after the war. And so on. I've changed all the names. Are you ready to read together?
Yes.
All this happened more or less, the war parts anyway, are pretty much true. One guy I knew really was shot in Dresden for taking a teapot that wasn't his. Another guy I knew really did threaten to have his personal enemies killed by hired gunmen after the war, and so on. I've changed all the names. So that is choral reading, and I hope you liked learning the lesson.